John McClain, Hall of Famer, GallerySports.com, as you just heard, 610 in Houston, and many other shows like this throughout the country. And this is 365 Sports. Paul?
John, did I hear it right? The Texans are going to change their uniforms?
They're going to keep their colors, and for the first time in franchise history, to be unveiled at next year's draft, they're going to have different designs, and people are real fired up about it. And then it's out there somewhere that they're going to have a blue that's Columbia blue like the Oilers had, but that's not true.
Oh, that's kind of a shame.
Yeah.
Dang, I was kind of hoping
Well,
you were going to
next year, they can't wear Columbia blue, and next season, this upcoming season, the Titans are going to wear their Oilers uniforms one game. And the word is it's going to be when the Texans are in Nashville. And that's not a big deal to the fans in Nashville. They look at their throwback uniforms was when they got their new name, Titans, and their new stadium and new facility in 1999. Their real throwback uniforms would be 1997 and 98 when they were known as the Tennessee Oilers. And they played the first season in Memphis and the second season at Vanderbilt. But as far as the owner, Amy Adams Strunk, who grew up with the Oilers, the only time they've ever worn the Oilers uniforms was in their first game, a Hall of Fame game in preseason. I was there, and it was weird seeing them. And so the fans up there, yeah, they're kind of fired up. But here, it's going to be a huge controversy. And for no reason. You know, for some reason, there's people in Houston, including in the media, who think that the Texans should have something to do with the Oilers, but they don't. The Titans are the Oilers, not the Texans. So Amy Adams Strunk has done a tremendous job with those old Oiler players, having reunions every year, treating them like royalty, and they love her. She's been the antithesis of her dad, the late Bud Adams. And so I think it'd be great if they wore them up there. It would be controversy here. It already is. And it'd be great talk show fodder for a couple of weeks before and after. People here don't like it. Well, I think it'd be tremendous.
John, Joe Cap passed away. My memories of him, he's a big, tall, physical quarterback, pretty decent arm, Super Bowl, lost to the Chiefs. Buddy, was he like Unitas and wore high tops too, or am I just dreaming that?
I can't remember if he did. A lot of players did back then. But Joe Cap was, he played in the Canadian League, and he played at Cal, played in the Canadian League, and he was a physical guy who ran a lot, tried to run over people. Mm-hmm. He led Minnesota to the Super Bowl. He got beat by Kansas City. And he was the kind of player that was endeared to fans because of the style of play he had. And it was interesting because one of his claims to fame, he went to Cal and his alma mater and was the head coach in 1982 with no experience. And he was coach of the year. And he was the winning coach in one of the most famous endings to a game in history. To me, the most famous, the Stanford Band game. And that was his first season or his second season. And John Elway was on that team, I believe. And so that he died. His son said they'd been struggling for 15 years with dementia, which doesn't surprise me that he had head issues because of the style of football that he played. And remember, those guys would lead with their head, and those helmets had one face bar, and they would gouge each other's eyes, break noses, knock out teeth when they weren't wearing mouthpieces. But boy, he was the physical player from a physical era.
John, punter Matt Araiza was released from the Bills after the rape charges came up. He is about to be officially exonerated in that case. Do you think he will get back into the NFL pretty quickly?
I don't know, Paul. I mean, he's a punter. Mm-hmm. How many punters win games? if he was a position, if he's a quarterback, receiver, pass rusher, he'd be back in a heartbeat. And I read everything that the prosecution couldn't come up with. That it's a fascinating story. I think it was on Yahoo, and where the prosecution brought the woman in who had been the accuser, who said she'd been gang raped, and went over it with her. And they got a copy of this and went over every step of the way what they could and could not prove. And they claimed that he was not even there at the time when she said he was part of a gang rape. He had left. So I'm sure somebody will sign him, and the team will go out of its way to make sure all this is known. And if indeed he never participated in that, there was a thing she claimed he did before she said he took her in a ring to be gang raped, that she had done outside with him sexually against her wishes. They couldn't prove that either. So all that'll be explained to teams, and it'll be in the media. You know, he is a hell of a punter, and that's why Buffalo drafted him. But they knew about all that, and they had him on the roster, and it wasn't until she filed her civil suit that they cut him immediately, and she may continue with the civil suit.
John, I saw, I think we all are aware who follow along with the NFL, the next big thing coming down the pipeline is this schedule release at the end of the week or on Thursday. But this is the first time, and maybe I just haven't paid attention, but they're going full bore with these little incremental announcements. Like the international games are going to be announced tomorrow on the NFL Network and ESPN. Amazon's going to announce the Black Friday game tomorrow. Fox and Friends and CBS Morning will be announcing individual games. The Today Show and Good Morning America will be announcing some games on Friday, and I guess they'll have the full meal deal on Thursday night. But what were scheduling announcements like when you first started?
Well, when I first started covering the NFL, when I left the Waco Tribune Herald to come down here and started on the Texans Oilers in '77, there was no ESPN. The league would send the schedule to each team, and the teams would announce it to the media, and it wasn't that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. And then it wasn't that big of a deal till recently, because a few years ago they announced it right before the draft. And it just was a big deal for about half a day. And then it was lost in the shuffle of all the draft speculation. And somebody came up with a great idea, whoever it is should have gotten a raise, about doing it a couple of weeks afterward. And then they have been releasing pieces of the schedule a couple of days in advance, but never to the extent that they are now, Craig. You just read all these outlets. I feel bad for the media who cover the Cowboys, because they got to keep up with all those primetime games. Jets will have the maximum number of appearances. And they made it this year where every team doesn't have to be in a primetime game. Why would anybody want to have the Texans in a primetime game? They've won 11 games over the last 3 seasons. Now, if they were going to have one, it should be when they play at Carolina, and you'd have the first 2 quarterbacks picked in the draft. But I don't know that they'll be in there at all. And I think it's great the way they do it. I love the Black Friday game. I think the Raiders ought to be in that, since they're known as silver and black. Put them in there with the Chiefs. But I feel sorry for the schedule makers and everything they have to go through, especially they had contingency plans about Aaron Rodgers if he didn't go to the Jets, or if he didn't, and then Lamar Jackson, because that could have drug out, and he could have said, you know what, I'm not playing this year. And then all of a sudden theirs would have collapsed. But those people up in New York that put out that schedule, they make up the schedule. They do a tremendous job. And Peter King writes about it every year in his Football Morning in America, about it's a 24/7 proposition for quite a while.
There used to be the networks, Paul, Fox, NBC was whatever, and man, you're right, it's just all tied together as one now. It's not like I can wake up and I know at noon or 3:15 or so we're going to watch a game on Fox. Is going to be either a game where the NFC's on the road, or it's an NFC versus NFC team.
One of these days, I don't know when, because the NFL, if it wanted to, you could play the Super Bowl at the end of February. You could play the Super Bowl in March or April. It doesn't matter. But if they expand to like Europe, specifically England or Germany, you can put 2 or 3 bye weeks into a season if you want to accommodate the travel. But at some point, remember when it was preposterous to think that football could be played on Monday night? Who would watch football on Monday night when you have such highly rated TV shows on the 3 networks, ABC, NBC, and CBS? Nobody wanted them. Roone Arledge of ABC talked NFL, Pete Rozelle, the commissioner, into doing it. And turned out to be one of the greatest ideas in the history of television, not just sports. And then they said, okay, they'll start playing some games on Saturday after the college football season ends in December, and that went over well. And then somebody came up with the idea of Thursday night football. Players complain about Thursday night football in a short week, but they never complain about all that time they get off afterward, which is like a second bye week. And so now they got the Black Friday. Is there any doubt that someday the NFL will find a way to own every night of the week?
John, how are the Astros going to make it through the year when they keep losing pitchers?
Well, first of all, it's got nothing, their record right now has nothing to do with losing pitchers, Paul. Their record has to do because they can't hit. Jose Abreu, who they acquired for like $54 million, does not have a home run, and he can't hit squat. Alex Bregman got 2 hits last night. He's been awful at the plate. Martin Maldonado was an automatic out like pitchers used to be, and he's not playing defense the way he did. They've had some guys like Mauricio Dubon and Corey Julks, an outfielder, a rookie, who have been surprises. But their problem is their bullpen, which was the best in baseball last year. Mm-hmm. And it has not been anywhere near. They've blown the last 2 games, almost blew the second game of the previous series at Seattle. Kyle Tucker had 2-run homer. Tonight, you got Framber Valdez against Shohei Ohtani. And if I were a betting man, of course, I'd take that because when they bring in their bullpen guys, they just can't. They're not pitching like they did last year. And yes, not getting Lance McCullers back, letting Justin Verlander leave, losing Luis Garcia for 2 years. He's going to have Tommy John surgery. Jose Urquidy was another starter. He's gone to the All-Star game. And so they have a shortage. But if these other people were doing their job, the Rangers wouldn't be running away with the division.
Well, they are right now, and they look pretty good doing it. They got an issue with their bullpen, too. No, Joe Cap, I don't see any images. I've looked like 50 of them. He did not wear the high tops like Unitas. I guess back in the day, he wore the black shoes, but most of the players did. John, thank you so much for your time.
Guys, thank you very much. Sick 'em Bears.
Yes, sir. Thank you, John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist with us on 365 Sports.
Yeah, I think some of these games